Hi there and good afternoon. It's Tips and Tricks Wednesday for August 5th, 2020. My name is Michael Garza for Keller Williams Realty. Today we're going to discuss the steps of buying a new home. This is for all you first-time home buyers there, or maybe people who have purchased homes in the distant past and have forgotten about what it was like, or aren't familiar with how things have changed. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the first step in buying a new home, the first current step in buying a new home, is going to be to check your credit score. It's very important that you have a higher credit score, which is not to say that you can't purchase a home if your credit score is below, say, 720. However, 720 is where the world opens. To get the best interest rates, to get the easiest, most flexible terms that you can get, 720 and above is generally the idea. That's where you want to be, okay? So that means if you haven't been paying your bills on time for a while, or if you've missed a few payments, see if you can call your lenders on those bills and get that rectified. Perhaps get them taken off your score. That will help. Remember, the highest score you can have is going to get you the best loan possible, okay? Secondly, this is something that I recommend to my clients that a lot of people don't have on their lists, and that is find your job and draw a circle around your job as on a map, of course, as far as you're willing to drive every day. And that'll give you an idea of where the region in which you can buy, or you want to buy, I suppose I should say. It's going to, depending on how much you've got to spend, it's going to be influenced by a commute. Perhaps you'll sit in traffic for a couple hours a day. If you're coming in at $500,000 and all you can afford is Tracy or Brentwood, figure on spending some time in traffic. That's part of the cost of the house. Vallejo is a good option if you don't mind crossing the bridge. Now the bridge is $6 a day, one way, of course. However, you may consider that that's better than sitting in traffic for 2 hours each way. It all depends on who you are and what your tolerance levels are. The third step, and one of the most important steps, I would say, is find a real estate agent. Find somebody that you mesh well with, that personality matches your personality. And do your due diligence on the agent and interview a few agents. You don't have to necessarily just pick one right off the bat, but you want to check reviews on these agents and find out if they have five-star reviews, or if they have 3 stars, or if they have knocks against them. These things are important because it's one of those situations where you're putting a lot of money in this person's hand and you have to be able to trust them. Their job is not only to help you find a home, but it's also to manage the home buying process. They're going to be your confidant. They're going to be your lifeline to get you from one end of the transaction to the other. Very, very important to have a good agent. Here at Keller Williams, we vet our agents very well, and you'll find that just about any of our agents are competent and able to lead you from one end of a transaction to the other without any problems. So that's something you may find important. The next step, I would say, is get pre-approved by a lender. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. A pre-approval letter is something that will need to be included with your offer should you find a home that you want to make an offer on. Any agent that's representing the seller is going to want to see that you can actually buy the house before they allow the house to be taken off the market. It's just common sense. Some number of years ago, say 2 decades ago, maybe a little bit more than, buying a house was visiting a few different houses. You had a week or 2 weeks to make up your mind if that's what you wanted to do, which house was going to be the best for you. That's not how it is anymore. Any house that's desirable, the reasons that you like it are going to be the same reasons that other people like it. And so you're going to have to compete for the house, especially in the Bay Area. This may not hold true in Eureka and Patterson and places like that, but here in the direct Bay Area, it is. So that being said, it might be better for you to find a lender that will underwrite you. What's the difference? Okay, a pre-approval letter is something where you go to a banker and maybe it's your bank, Wells Fargo, B of a credit union, and they take a look at your credit score, they take a look at your work history, and they say, yeah, these people can buy a house. Sure, we'll take a look at a loan for them. They're going to give you a pre-approval letter. Joe Blow is pre-approved up to $750,000, and this is who I am as the loan officer. Feel free to call me, that sort of thing. Now, getting an underwritten loan means that the loan is complete. Essentially, all you have to do is plug in the address of the home that you've decided to buy or that you want to make an offer on. Why this is important is because that shortens the closing time and it lessens the chances of falling out of closing, falling out of contract. If you're a seller, this is important, and it could make the difference between your loan getting accepted, or excuse me, your offer getting accepted over somebody else's who has only a pre-approval letter. Unfortunately, it costs money to get a loan underwritten. A lot of places aren't willing to do it. Many major banks are not willing to do it because it costs them, let's say, $1,000 to get you underwritten, and then you don't buy a house and they don't get anything back for their investment. What you will find is a lot of brokers are willing to get you underwritten. They're willing to spend the time and the money to do it, and they're willing to do that because they're smaller, they work on tighter margins, they don't have people beating down their doors like, let's say, Wells Fargo does, or Chase or Citibank. So they're willing to go the extra mile for you. This is something you may want to consider because, again, getting an underwritten loan letter is going to have a lot more power than getting just a pre-approval letter. And of course, if you have any questions and you want further explanation, you can contact me. I'll be happy to spend the time and go over it with you. At this point, you should be ready to start looking at homes. Once you have that letter in your pocket, go back to that map where you drew the circle, figure out what cities that you want to look in that you can afford. If you don't have $1 million, it's probably not going to be Danville or Alamo. If you are coming in at a couple of $100,000, you should be looking at, well, by a couple of hundred, I mean 400, 500, 600,000. You should be looking at places like maybe Hayward, once again, Brentwood, Vallejo, Tracy. You can still do Mountain House for those prices. You're not going to get a whole lot other than those areas, and you will find that you get a lot more money, a lot more house for your money the farther out you go, but you're going farther out, which means that if you work, say, in San Leandro and you like what you see in Tracy for the $450,000 that you have to spend, well, you have to wrap your mind around the fact that you're going to have, you know, a couple of hours in traffic every day, either direction, naturally depending on what your shift is. If you're a shift worker, let's say you're a cop and you're on swings, then you're not going to have to worry about traffic a whole lot because there isn't going to be a ton out there at the times that you're going to be commuting. But if you have a normal job, say a 9-to-5 job somewhere, you're going to be commuting between the hours of, say, 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning and 5:30 to 7 at night. You're going to run into some traffic. That's just a fact of living here. Wrap your head around it. There's not a lot you can do about it other than getting more money to put down on a house, to put towards buying a home. So that's something that you want to look for. Before you go out and look for the house, something that I like to recommend, another thing that I like to recommend is taking a piece of paper or getting your phone and writing down the things that are most important to you. Now, whenever I interview buyers, before I take on buyers as clients, I have a profile that I go through, and it's a questionnaire essentially, and it will give me a good idea of what's important to my buyers, my potential buyers, and things that maybe they're not that interested in. Maybe they're young people and they don't need a big backyard, and that just represents a lot of maintenance for them. They don't want to mow lawns and things of that nature. Well, I might recommend, a condominium, for example, something they can get into for a little bit less money. Yeah, there are generally HOAs involved, but HOAs, it's kind of a different topic, but HOAs aren't being thrown away because you have to remember that when you pay HOAs, you're getting something for that money every month. You don't have to build, typically you won't have to put a roof on the place when the roof goes bad. If there's dry rot on the exterior panels, like barge rafters or rafter tails, things like that. Maybe the condo is finished in T111, which is that rough cut plywood that they use for siding. Stuff likes to rot a lot. It doesn't stand rain really well. You don't need to worry about that. That's what your HOAs are paying for. But let's get back on topic. At any rate, so what's important to you? Do you want a swimming pool? Does it need to be close to a park or maybe jogging trails? Do you bike a lot and you need some place that's got really good places to go for road biking or mountain biking? Things of that nature. So I want you to think about that before you go out and start looking for homes, even on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com, wherever it is that you're going to find your initial scans for homes. Know what it is that you're looking to buy. That'll give you, that'll really narrow it down, and it'll save you a lot of time. Unless you just dig touring homes just because you want to tour homes, and that's okay too. There are people that like doing that. But if you're like most of us and you're on a schedule, you want to be as efficient with your time as possible, and that will help to whittle down some of the parameters of the house so that you can make some intelligent choices right off the bat. Okay, when you find the home that you are looking at buying, or something that's a candidate that you think you might like, and you want to make an offer, that's where your realtor really comes to the fore, because your realtor is going to know how to structure that offer based on hopefully some intelligence that they got from the other real estate agent, the one representing the seller. Once again, when I'm going to be making an offer, the first thing I do is call the listing agent to try and see if I can glean some tips from them that the seller might be interested in within my offer. So for example, maybe they spent half of the time they owned that house planting and maintaining a garden in that house. They're going to want somebody who's going to come in because they've put body and soul in that garden, blood, sweat, and tears. They're not necessarily going to want to sell to a developer who's going to bulldoze the house and tear out the garden. Believe it or not, this does make a difference. Selling a house is just as emotional as buying a house. And sometimes it can make a huge difference in getting your offer accepted over somebody else's. So pay attention to things like that too. And once again, this is something that your realtor should know about and should be able to handle without a problem. Okay, once you've made the offer, once it's accepted and you're in contract, and remember, you may not get accepted the first 1 or 2 or even 3 offers that you make. Don't let this discourage you. This business anymore is a roller coaster. It's a real emotional roller coaster. You need to gird yourself and be prepared for it, because if you don't, you can get burned out, you can get very discouraged, and a lot of people fall away from the market. They wait, we'll come back next year. Well, next year that same house is more money or one like it. So when you're ready and you have the ability to buy, you better buy, because prices don't generally go down. If they do, they don't last very long. If you look at the profile of the real estate market, once again, in the Bay Area, over the last, say, 40 years, from 1980 to 2020, you'll see that there have been some downturns, but by and large, over time, it's an investment. You make more money because there's always more people, and people always want a secure place to live. So that's something that you need to pay attention to as well. Once you're in contract, you're going to want to get inspections. I know it's tempting to not spend the money for inspections. Even if the seller has already had some inspections done, you may consider, and this is something to discuss with your realtor, you may consider getting some inspections of your own done. It doesn't hurt to double check. Yeah, it is going to cost you some money. Yeah, you may lose that money if you find something that you just don't want to deal with and you decide to walk away from that home. But believe me, I've been in this business long enough to know that you don't want to discover you have $150,000 worth of foundation work that needs to be done after you've bought the home because you didn't want to spend $700 on a home inspection and a foundation inspection. Let's call it termites, let's call it dry rot, let's call it roof, plumbing. You need to know what you're getting into, because as we all know, unless you are well-to-do or better, buying a home usually takes just about 90 to 95% of all the assets that you might have available to you at that time. Once again, you don't want to get into a home and discover right off the bat that you need to pay out $10,000 because you found dry rot and your roof leaks, right? Home inspections, very, very important. You need to know what it is you're buying. It's just like anything else. You wouldn't buy a car without test driving it. You can't really test drive a home, but you can have it looked at by professionals, and they will give you a professional opinion as to the condition of the home. So don't forget that. Now, your realtor knows this, but it never hurts to maybe remind them in case they get caught up in something else in the deal and they forget to mention it to you. Okay. Step 8, get an estimate on insurance. Now, this wasn't always an issue. It used to be that you could get insurance without a problem. Here in California, ever since all the fires, and then even more recently, all the riots and the damage done by those things, a lot of insurance companies are pulling back from California. They're not writing policies any longer here, especially companies that have paid out a lot of money because of the fires in Santa Rosa, in Chico, the Butte fire. It's pretty much understood by everybody who pays attention that California has a fire season every year. This isn't new information. It's been this way for a very, very long time. But the problem is that with new construction, you have more and more homes, and you're reaching more and more into that wildland interface where homes are being built, especially in the hinterlands away from the Bay Area, where homes are being built around large fuel deposits like forests and like grasslands. This is very important for you to understand. I recently sold or helped to buy a home for a client in South Lake Tahoe, and we very nearly lost the deal because nobody would insure it. We had to go to Lloyd's of London to get it insured. Now that has changed since then, but just bear in mind, you want to check and see what it's going to cost, number one, and number two, if your insurance company will even underwrite in that area. Because if they won't, you're going to have to find somebody who will. Okay, at that point, once you pass inspections, you pass appraisal, you go ahead and get the loan in place, you're open to close, You're ready to close. Now, closing periods, they vary. I've seen them as long as several months. I've seen them as short as, like the last house I bought, I believe was 7 days, because my wife and I had all our ducks in a row ahead of time. So there is a variance there. You can't start moving your stuff in until it closes. You just can't do it. I know, even if it looks good, even if it looks like everything's going to close, you don't want to start moving stuff even into the garage, and then at the last minute something happens, and then you get put in a bad situation. You have to go back and move your stuff out again. So just be patient, wait for the closing. Once you have the keys in your hand, it's everybody's happy, it's win-win-win, and then you're able to move in. I hope this has helped all of you who listen to it, especially you first-time buyers, who are the people, that's the demographic I aim this at. Once again, if you have any questions, Michael Garza, Keller Williams Realty in Danville. You can reach me at 755-2828 in the 510, or you can reach me at 4newwalls@gmail.com. All right, have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.